Hold on. You didn't learn anything in the last video? Oh boy, you're a tough cookie. Don't worry, we will get into more and more advanced topics later in the course, but let's finish our talk on databases because, again, I want to connect the dots for us. We learned that a database is essentially a computer with some database software on top. In a way, if you've ever used something like Google Sheets or Excel, that's a database, right? It's a way for us to store data, and the Excel software allows us to manipulate that data. In a way, a pen and paper is a database as well. It's not digital, but it's a way for us to store data. Now, the reason we always see these images as databases is because of this. This is called drum memory. And I'll link to this resource so you can read more about it. But back in the day, before we had disk drives, this is how we stored data. It was called drum memory. And as you can see, it's cylindrical. And that's why, for historical reasons, just like our save button on a computer is a floppy disk, this drum memory represents usually databases. But again, in this day and age, they're all just computers. So because a database is just a computer and some software, are there many different types of databases? Well, yeah, there are. I mean, we talked about Excel, right? Essentially, you can use a spreadsheet that you get in Excel to store data. So why don't we just use that for all companies? Why do we need something bigger, something like a database that we're going to talk about? You see, the problem with things like Excel is that eventually you'll get to a point where you have too much data, where an Excel or a spreadsheet just can't handle it. And on top of that, there are many things that databases that we'll learn about in this course will solve, such as making sure that database has integrity. So that is, not everybody can just modify data or delete a database. You can store terabytes of data. You can combine different databases. You can automate steps and use programs to do some really interesting things that you might not be able to do on a spreadsheet. Again, something we'll cover later on in the course. But some of the most popular databases are here. This is just a fraction of the databases out there. Because data is so different, because every company, every user uses data in a different way, we have different databases that do things differently, and each one of these have pros and cons. Now, the beauty is that in this course, we're going to cover some of the main databases and way to interact with them, and later on, we'll learn about the pros and cons so you can decide which database you should use based on your situation. But let's take Keiko Corp as an example. How would Keiko Corp or a company use a database? Well, we mentioned that there's lots of data coming into a company. And a company as big as Keiko Corp has a lot of uses for data. For example, you might have product managers. And product managers always have to know the product that they are working on. For example, drones, they need to get data and learn about the product's health, whether a product is working properly. Learn from data, learn from different information to perhaps improve a product. You have things like marketers. And marketers, you need to find out information from data. You want to analyze business decision, give you insights about how to market a product. Or you might be a web developer, a mobile app developer that creates apps on phone or on the web. And those apps usually have things like user sign-ins or profiles that you need to store somewhere so that when a user comes back onto your app, they're able to reload their information. Or maybe they're playing a game and they need to start the game from their last saved location. You also have things like data analysts or data scientists that understand data, that analyze data of a company and make decisions, such as perhaps even building machine learning models so that a company can serve better information to a user, better products to a user. Analyze different parts of the company to maybe see which employees should get a raise, who to hire. And then you also have data engineers or database administrators, these are the people that actually help set up the databases in a company, update software, install things, make sure that databases are connected with one another. They might use things like Hadoop, Facebook's Presto, Google's BigQuery, Amazon Redshift, and set up all this infrastructure in place for other parts of the companies to use databases. Now, as you can see, there's lots of data. And more importantly, there's lots of different databases, different people in a company that use databases in different way. But hold on a second. All this data is used differently by different people, right? Different operations, different options. Each of these people are interested in different parts of data. And this is why you're taking the course. You're taking this course because you want to hopefully be able to work in any of these fields. And the good news is that even though there's all sorts of databases, even though there's all sorts of jobs, one of the most common ways to work with databases, to ask a database a question, what we call a query, to interact with it, to use that information that is so useful, we use SQL, a way for us to interact or communicate with that database. And that's what this course is all about. Let's take a break and I'll see you in the next video.